Hi, piano teachers. Nicola Canton here from Colourful Keys, back with you again. And today I'm going to be chatting to you about imposter syndrome. This is the feeling where you feel like a bit of a fraud. And I know a lot of piano teachers feel this way. In fact, I talk to them every day where they email me and they say, I just feel like I got started teaching and my students do okay, but I always feel a little bit nervous about telling people that I'm a piano teacher, or I'm embarrassed to say that I didn't study music in college, or some other reason that they think that they're not real, that they don't count as a piano teacher, or that they shouldn't be doing it, even though they love it and they're obviously great at it. We talked about this, me and the curious piano teachers, in a recent interview that I just released on the blog on Sunday. We talked about this idea of imposter syndrome because Sharon, who was on the interview from the curious piano teachers, and myself both got started. We're both from Ireland, and we both got started basically because our teacher said, oh, you might want to give teaching a go, right? And so we got started with piano teaching, and always we're left with this feeling of, yeah, but am I a real teacher? No, I'm just doing a bit of teaching, right? And I think a lot of us get started that way. And it's a shame that then we end up feeling like an imposter, like a fraud. And I don't think it's fair. So if you are feeling like imposter, if you're feeling like you're not a genuine teacher, it can hold you back from several things. It can hold you back from creating proper policies, and this is the huge one, and really sticking to them. So I see some teachers who don't have policies at all because they feel like, oh, well, I just do this as well as my office job, or I just do it for this or that, or I only teach beginners. There's no reason not to have policies. Even if you have 2 students, I think you should have policies for how you run lessons with those 2 students. I think it just makes sense. Now, I didn't have them for years, and then when I really set myself up and started teaching full-time, that's when I added them. But I should have had them from the very beginning. I really think I would have been so much better off if, as a teenager, I started out with just a list of how things were going to work, how it was going to run, rather than going on assumptions. And the second big thing with the policies is teachers often set them, but then they don't believe in themselves enough as a professional to stick to their policies. Because they have this feeling of imposter syndrome, or feeling like a fake or a bit of a fraud or not a real teacher, then when parents question their policies, they just kind of back off. They don't really act like they believe in them. And if you don't believe in your policies, no one else is going to, right? I think we know that. If our doctor said, yeah, you're supposed to pay for last minute cancellations, and then if you ask them about it, they'd be like, oh, well, I'll let you off. You wouldn't treat those policies seriously. You wouldn't think that they're real. And that's what happens with teachers who don't have enough faith in themselves, that they don't stick to those policies. Imposter syndrome can also lead to teachers not charging what they're worth. And even if you're not one of these imposter teachers, if you don't feel like this, maybe you used to and you don't anymore, I want to encourage you to encourage other teachers who might feel like this, because if they charge less, they're bringing the market rate down. So it's bad for everyone. And the reason they're doing it a lot of the time is they're like, oh, well, I'm just getting started. I only teach beginners. I only do this. I only do that. I don't have this. I don't have that, right? And if they're saying that, then they're charging less than what they're really worth with their years and years of education, even if they've just taken piano lessons privately, right? They've probably gone through years and years of lessons to get to the stage where they feel like they can just teach beginners. We'll deal with that term another day, but anyway. So they don't charge what they're worth. They don't charge as much as you, or you aren't charging as much as other people. And yes, it is depending on experience, but charging way below the market rate and basically undercutting people, even if that's not what they mean to do, it harms everyone. And it's their lack of faith in themselves that's leading them to do that in a lot of cases. The third thing that I think imposter syndrome can really affect and have a massive impact on is their ability to educate parents. If you don't believe in yourself and your standards as a teacher, the way you set your curricula, whatever it is, if you don't believe in that, then when a parent comes to you and they say, I think Susie should be at this level by now. I want her to take the grade 1 exam in June. I want her to be learning the Moonlight Sonata or some nonsense, right? You kind of know it's nonsense, but if you don't have enough faith in yourself, you might think maybe, okay, I'll just give it a go. Parent seems to think, no, the parent is not allowed to just think that Susie should be learning a Moonlight Sonata. You have a plan, I'm sure you do, for that student, and you need to have faith in it. And you need to believe in yourself and your expertise. Even if you've only been teaching a few years, you know more than the parent who has never taught piano in their life. So don't let them push you around. And when you feel like a fraud, that it can be so easy to do that, to let parents push you. And I'm sure I let many parents push me in the beginning, but you don't need to do that. So 3 ways now where you can tell if you are an imposter teacher. Now, this is a bit tongue-in-cheek because I don't think any of you are. But the first one, if you want to reassure yourself, is to look at your own students' progress. If your students are making good progress by whatever standards you see, and they're playing well, and they're enjoying lessons, and they love music, you are not an imposter teacher, you are a genuine teacher. You're real. If your students are doing well, then you're a good teacher. I just think it can be as simple as that. So that's one measure to look at. Another way to overcome this imposter syndrome is to seek out more training. And this is tough because if you do have this feeling of being an imposter, and we talk about this more in the interview with the Curious Piano Teachers, we discuss this, the nervousness of going to training, even online, just announcing who you are and what your background is, can be really nerve-wracking if you think everyone has a master's in music education. If that's what it feels like to you, or whatever it is, the barrier that's holding you back, it can be so hard to put yourself out there. Go to that training. Introduce yourself in online forums or Facebook groups and get feedback, because you're afraid that you're just going to be cut down because you're an imposter, right? You're not real. These people are serious, real teachers, and you're not one of them. But you probably are more one of them than you think. And like I say, I get emails from teachers all the time in the exact position you're in if this is you. So you're not alone. You're not even in the minority. I'd say it's about 50-50 teachers who have some formal education background and teachers who maybe landed at it in another way. And the third way that you can get rid of this imposter syndrome is to connect with other teachers. And this goes hand in hand with the training, especially in-person training. There's all this fantastic stuff online, right? And I love it, and I'm a big part of it, and I'm so involved with it. But going to actual in-person events is a hugely important thing as well. Just connecting online is great, but it's not the same as attending an in-person event, overcoming that feeling of being a fraud, being there, introducing yourself to someone and letting them know your background and discovering that maybe they're just like you, or maybe they find your background that's different from theirs fascinating, interesting, and valuable. Not something to be sniffed at. And if they do sniff at you, oh my gosh, just move on to the next person. They are not worth your time. But most of the time, that is not what happens. If you're struggling to go to these in-person events, now it might be that they're just far away, right? That's a different issue. But if you're just nervous about it, please try to just go along. I've been to lots of events in Ireland and now abroad. I prefer the ones abroad, if I'm honest, but I always go to them anyway, and I don't hide who I am, which is a piano teacher with years of experience who landed into this from a fashion design background somehow. So if people ask me about it, I'm absolutely open, and I've never had anyone, to my face anyway, say anything negative about that background. And honestly, at this stage, it would just roll off me. But I understand if it makes you nervous to tell people your story, whatever it was. But I want to encourage you to give it a go. Go along to that event. If there's something you've been putting off, if you've just been nervous to introduce yourself to a local teacher, try to do it. They might be friendlier than you think. And if they're not, who cares about them? They're not important. Come talk to me instead. But give it a go. I think you'll be able to do it, and I think you'll be surprised at the reaction. So, if you are an imposter teacher, if you feel like one, have a look at those 3 things and see if you can overcome this a little bit. It's a gradual process. And if you do, it'll mean that you can make clear policies and stick to them with more vigor. It'll mean that you'll be able to charge what you're worth, which is valuable for all teachers everywhere. And it'll mean that you can be have more strength when you're educating your piano parents about what your plans are, because you have plans. If you don't sit down and make some plans and then educate the parents about them. So I want you all to believe in yourselves, and feel free to email me. I don't mind getting these emails about imposter syndrome, but it does break my heart a little bit because teachers are agonizing over reaching out to someone like me, or maybe they've heard my story so they feel okay reaching out to someone like me, but they're agonizing over other things like attending events or reaching out to local teachers. And I really don't want people to be doing that. It has to be a welcoming community. And if people are mean to you, please just move along from them and find your people, because they are out there. You can find your piano teacher friends. So make sure that you all check out the interview with the Curious Piano Teachers. It's live right now on the Colourful Keys blog. In fact, I'm going to paste a link right here. And you can go to colourfulkeys.ie/curious to get there really quickly. It was a wonderful interview. It is a little bit noisy because it was done at the Music Expo in London, an in-person event that I attended, and it was wonderful. So it's a little bit noisy, so there are subtitles on it so you can follow what's going along. Also, if you're from different parts of the world and maybe you find my accent or Sharon or Sally's accent's a little bit difficult to understand, that'll help with that too. So because we're from Ireland, Northern Ireland and the UK. So I really hope you enjoyed watching that interview and that you enjoyed this video today about imposter syndrome. And hopefully it's just given you that little bit of a push to try and overcome this. If you have any thoughts about imposter syndrome, how it's affected you, how you've overcome it, or what you're struggling with because of imposter syndrome or feeling like a fraud at the moment, please leave them in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe so that you get the next one of these as soon as it goes live. So have a great day and bye for now.